All right, welcome to the first pull request video. And in this first series, I'm going to show you how I push code from this two-stroke engine front end that you've seen a lot of content on. I have a lot of videos creating this. And basically, I added a couple small changes that actually I've already added kind of in the past, but it was in another similar front end to this until I basically rebuilt it and then put it in this new solution, but I have a video covering that too. Basically, I just added these two basic migration scripts as well as I think adding the fluent migrator package, but functionally it doesn't do anything. I didn't wire up that into any of the startup pipelines or really anything, but I just want to show you what this is going to look like. So I've pushed that and it's on my GitHub in my repository. You can see that I have an option to compare and pull request. So I'm going to click that. And it's going to take you to the screen. Basically, it's asking you to open a pull request. And what that means is that we want to create basically a request for this code in this branch. So add migrations branch. And we want to see if we can add it to the main branch or the master branch. And you're going to see a lot of the times you're going to have some kind of indication, like I just did feature / add migrations. Every place is going to be different, but a lot of the times you're going to call it something basically as, to organize it by some, in some hierarchy. But if we scroll down here, you can see all the changes that I added in green, and you can see that I have a migration script, which basically sets up the table in my database if this was actually run. Fluent migrator is just a tool to be able to do that, and then it gives you an executable that will basically run every file that's marked with this migration attribute, and then you specify an up and down method, and the up basically builds your table while the down method tears it down. So if there was ever a problem or if you have to roll your code back, that's where the down method comes into play. Down is absolutely essential because if you create something but then you roll something back, you'd be in a weird state and your code might error because it's looking for a table that no longer exists. And ideally, actually I'm going to say that for code review. So same thing here, migration, and then you just tag it with, you can tag it with some kind of timestamp and then go from there. And down here you can see, it looks like I have just some basic white space changes that aren't really valid, and then I had to add these packages, basically Fluent Migrator, and then the tool to allow me to use MySQL, and then the runner, which basically potentially gives me the flexibility to run these migrations somewhere in the startup process. I haven't landed on it if I'm going to do that yet, but we'll see. So I'm basically going to walk through this and go ahead and make a pull request. So I'm going to add a description. So we're going to basically follow the same pattern that we've been doing in our stand-up. So what, why, and then done when, I think would be a good place to start. So pull request descriptions are important because they need to basically match up to what the ticket that you're working on. In this case, this is not, to be honest, I'm not really working off a ticket for this specific example, but you want to try to match up your pull request description to basically whatever unit of work that you're working on. So in my case, my what is add first migrations for setting up the engine's DB table. Why is we need migrations to run on deployments. And again, this is a big topic, right? This is something that we're going to have to figure out, is when do we want these migrations to run and how do we want them to run? If it's going to be part of our specific code deployment pipeline, if it's going to be something in that our application is going to handle, we'll figure that out. I'm leaning towards having a script handle this that's going to be called from our deployment pipeline. probably in GitHub Actions, but we'll see. Done when, our really done when is migration, fluent migrator has been added. So you can kind of just get a feel, right? You have to describe in text, what your code is doing, but it's important that you match it up to your ticket. And let me see if I can actually find a corresponding ticket, or how about we just make a ticket right now to do that? Why don't we do that? Now, obviously, that's not the the correct flow of there we go, of how this should actually be. You shouldn't be making a ticket in the in progress column, but I think we have to in this case. So hold on, is it, we may have already made a ticket for this. Have I already made a ticket? Research engine, project planning. I don't think we have. So I'm just going to keep this short for the sake of the video. So add migrations. And I'm actually just going to copy and paste that into our ticket just to kind of give you the feel for what we're doing. And then obviously it should reference the ticket somewhere. So I'm actually just going to copy the link and post it here just like that. Okay. And then, so what you're trying to do is match your pull request to the ticket as best you can, because the ticket is basically the contract of what you're trying to do, what the code is actually trying to do. So I think everything looks good. So we're going to hit create pull request. And now it's basically just going to check to say, hey, this code is going to be able to merge successfully into the main branch. And what that means is that it's basically a step that says, okay, let's see if we can merge this code in without getting any merge conflicts. Where you might have merge conflicts is if you're working with multiple people, somebody else works in the same code file that you're working in, and then you try to push changes before you pull their changes in your own branch, you're going to get a merge conflict that you'll probably have to resolve manually. And we'll have a video covering what that will look like if I can get it into that state. You're probably not going to run to that if you're just an individual, if you're keeping up with your source control correctly. Where you may run into it is if you make a couple branches yourself, push one, and then you don't pull on the other branch, and then you try to push that and they touch the same file. That's the only way I think I could see how that could happen if it's just yourself, at least. But so we have a couple approval required approvals. I believe the default is just me. So if you're ever on a team basis, you're going to have your lead or your senior developer who's probably going to have that approval, who'll be able to hit the approve button to basically merge your code into master. It might not be just the senior, it might be your whole team has that approval, but somebody's going to have that, and they're going to have to review your code. A couple other things that may happen when your code merges in, or if you make a pull request, is any kind of unit tests that are made are probably going to run, and anything like that. So if we go here, you're going to see we have a comment section, but what we're really trying to go for is when somebody, goes to your active pull requests on this in this repository, Two Stroke Engine's front end, we can go here and we can see, go to the files changed, and here's where we can get the diff between what's been added versus what's been in there. So obviously this new file is going to be in green because we added these, but any new changes are going to be marked more like this. So a deleted line is red and green is in any kind of new addition changes. So these changes right here, if I was going to review these changes here tell me that, okay, I've added another NuGet package, right? So I've added fluent migrator run MySQL, and the runner itself. So those are fine. Those are packages that we're using, and we should see a reference to them somewhere. And I think for me, I know that I'm gonna be using them later, so I'm okay to leave that in. If I were to come to a file like this, where I don't see any changes actually being made, I just kind of see white space changes, I might just leave a comment, say, like remove white space, like that, something like that. Please remove white space, whatever you want to say. So, and this is a part where I'm not super familiar with what GitHub's asking me. Can I start? If I hit start a review, is that okay? So it marks it as pending. Finish your review. Okay. I might just change that to a comment, but we'll see. We'll leave it there. Another one is, so if I come up to these files here where I'm actually just adding a straight migration, stuff like this, you're probably just going to be checking for if a lot of syntax, but if you're familiar with what the database structure is looking like, you probably will need to check, are your keys, do your keys appear correct? Does the logic for the up and down appear correct? And one thing immediately that may come to mind for this as well, I may put a guard statement around these delete tables to first check if the table exists. You'd be surprised sometimes that you may run into a weird state where this one might fail, and then this specific migration might fail, but the other ones might go through, and then it might try delete, and then it'll really fail when it tries to delete. So again, you're just trying to be overprotective about what your code is doing. So we may want to add a guard clause. Hold on, around the delete table logic, and if I can spell guard, here we go. So, and then if table exists, and then do that. Sometimes it's helpful, it's helpful to be descriptive, I think, as much as you can be in comments. Honestly, for references, to be a good reference later when when you're coming into it and you're trying to make sense of what what was happening in the past, as many comments as you can is helpful. So same thing here. Let's just see if we can copy that and add that to here. So we're going to add a review comment. And then everything else, looks good. Something I might also check on migration is, do the timestamps, do they make sense, or do they follow the pattern? So I think that's all I have here. So I'm going to hit finish review. And then, okay, it's asking you to write another comment. Let's see. All right, let's see what that looks like. Submit review. Okay. Commented now. Okay. So basically if you go to, it's going to look different, obviously, just because this is my account commenting on my own account. So pretend that this is another person. You can see that I have this basically comment count here. So, you'll be notified if somebody looked at your pull request and left comments. Then you'll have the option to resolve any of the comments. So once you fixed them, or the other person looks at them again or something like that, somebody's going to go in and resolve these. So if I hit resolve conversation, basically you can see that it closed it out, basically signaling that it's been done. Obviously, we didn't just go back and change it, but you can see what happened there. And then assuming when everything goes through, you can, whoever has the responsibility can come down to merge pull request and basically complete this pull request, and then the code's going to be merged into the main branch, and then you can pull down, and you're up to date on latest main. So that's really a lot of the job, is basically you're going to get a lot of pull requests, in this list from people on your team or whoever, and you're going to come into it and you're going to read it from a usability perspective. security perspective, is the code does the code work? Does it have all the null? Are you checking all? Is your logic sound? Do you have all the null checks? There's a fine line between code readability and general functionality. Like you don't want to be super prescriptive on like style of code, but there's also like some anti-patterns that you probably want to avoid, and then there's just general code safety things that you want in there, right? You want all your null checks. You want to make sure that you're not wasting resources or memory on something. But I think we'll get into some better pull requests that will help illustrate that and help show things that I might look for. And then maybe you guys can point out things that you look for in pull requests too. Obviously, this is just a test one, just to launch the series and then just to get a feel for us using GitHub and us merging code into the main branch here and get a feel for what we're doing. But we're going to have some big pull requests for sure with a lot of code that we're going to go through. So these videos might be kind of long, but hopefully they add value. But yeah, let me know. So anyway, appreciate you watching and take it easy.